puzzling because, for me, as an intellectual historian, the Enlightenment really had been left behind us as being, in the view of many postmodern critics, a worldview that led to intolerance and a worldview that actually generated the potential for conflict and violence. You all know why postmodernity moved away from modernity on that point. And also, again, a point I would love to discuss further with Mr. Hitchens. People like Alister McGrath, other critics of modernity, make the point that its foundational judgments about the nature of reason, the nature of what is right, actually cannot be sustained on the basis of an appeal to history and reason itself. For McIntyre and for many others, the Enlightenment offers us a vision of a rationality and morality which actually are unattainable in practice. Now, again, we might want to have a discussion about morality, and I fully accept that Mr. Hitchens is very committed to the moral vision, has a real sense of what is right and what is wrong, but I wonder if one can sustain that without some sort of metaphysical basis. And the point I would want to raise is this: is an evolutionary account of morality actually adequate to do the job? Richard Dawkins, with whom I disagree on many things, in his Selfish Gene makes the point that we alone have the capacity to react against our genes, to offer something better than we are genetically landed with. And it seems to me that is a very significant position. Or again, I discover that both Mr. Hitchens and I are lapsed Marxists. To take Antonio Gramsci's point, Gramsci made the point that in culture, moral values are manipulated by interest groups. How on earth can we defend ourselves against this? My real question, Mr. Hitchens, is can one have a viable moral system without some sort of transcendent basis of morality? I make this point not to challenge him as a moral thinker, but simply to ask whether one can actually do this. So I must end, and I do so, if I may, by telling you a story based on my own Northern Ireland. The story is told of two Catholic nuns who were driving along one night when they ran out of gas. They realized they'd passed a gas station about 100 yards back, so they decided to walk back and fill up with gas. They rummaged about in the back of the car, and they found a glass container which would do the job. Unfortunately, it was a medical specimen jar with the word urine written all over it. But it was all they had. They went back, filled up, and went to the car and started to pour this into the gas tank. A Protestant farmer drove by on his tractor, and he looked at them in utter astonishment. And he said, "Ladies, I don't think much of your religion, but I certainly admire your faith." And as I hear Mr. Hitchens speak, and I enjoyed his writing, I find myself wondering if he too is a man of faith. A man who believes that even though we cannot absolutely justify certain beliefs, nevertheless we can trust them. He says, our beliefs are not beliefs, but I think they are. And the real question for me is, in a world where reason and science do not deliver what we once thought they did, on what can we base our lives if we are to know that we are truly living the good, the beautiful, and the true life? Thank you very much.
Mr. Hitchens will take the podium again.
Michael wanted to do this sitting down, but it's the old demagogue in me. I need the pulpit, I need the podium, and if I can't be erect, at least I can be upright. By the way, do you know why the Amish girl was excommunicated? 2 Mennonite. Look, I'm going to take the doctor's excellent points in order, if I may, and you will, I'm sure, have minds orderly enough to recall the order in which he made them. On the empirical evidence, so-called, adduced, that a religious faith can lead to greater health and well-being, I, in a sense, do not doubt it. In other words, I can easily imagine that those who think they are the special object of a divine design feel better for thinking so. I just think it's going to be very important for anyone claiming this to see the dismaying trapdoor that is right under their feet. If you're going to claim this for one, how are you not going to claim it for all? Do we not hear incessantly that the Hamas organization in Gaza is a provider of welfare to the poorest of the poor? Have we not heard this? Do we not hear that Louis Farrakhan's crackpot racist organization, the Nation of Islam, gets young people off drugs? For all I know, it's true. It not only says nothing about the truth or validity of their theology, but it must say a certain amount, at least, about our willingness to think wishfully or cultishly, which was, if you like, part of my point to begin with. As to the center versus the fringe, I get this all the time. Don't judge religion by its fundamentalists and its extremists. No, why should I? I don't have to. I judge it by its foundational texts, and I judge it by the statements of its authorities. Take a case from the Quran, just for once. Does it? Actually, it's not the Quran, excuse me. Take a case from the Muslim foundational documents, the Hadith, which have equal canonical authority. They say, if someone becomes an apostate, leaves or changes their religion, they must be killed. The sentence is death. Don't anyone be telling me that's a metaphor. No, it's just intended as a sort of general admonition. No, it means what it says, and it's been applied to a couple of people who now have to live, friends of mine, as a matter of fact, as political refugees in Washington, D.C., who know how true the impact of that hadith. There's no wiggle room there, so the question for a Muslim must be asked. Do you think this is the word of God, or don't you? Because if you don't, you're saying that God shouldn't be able to tell you to do an evil thing, and if you do, you're saying he should. In either case, faith falls as a reinforcement of ordinary morality. Recently, Dr. McGrath is a member of the Church of England, the Anglican Communion, the Episcopalian Communion, what George Herbert, my favorite religious poet after John Donne, the sweet mediocrity of our native church was how he referred to it, the Sea of Canterbury. Everyone thinks it's the mildest of all. It not only calls itself a flock, it looks very sheep-like. However, the Bishop of Carlisle recently, tipped, I'm told, to be the next Archbishop of Canterbury, said that the floods in northern Yorkshire that devastated a large part of England in the summer and killed and dispossessed a large number of people were punishment for homosexuality. Now, to connect meteorology to morality seems to me, I have to say, flat out idiotic whichever way you do it. If there was a connection between meteorology and morality, which religion has very often argued that there is, I don't see why the floods hit northern Yorkshire. I can think of some parts of London where they would have done a lot more good. Just as the hurricane that devastated New Orleans, we found punishment for sin, as it must have been, left the French Quarter alone. You have to make up your mind on this. You either think God intervenes or he doesn't. I'm clear. I say, I don't think so. Will Dr. McGrath say that he does intervene and that we can tell when he does, or will he not say so? You have to ask him. You have to hear his answer. Does he say sometimes intervenes? Or does he say he moves in mysterious ways? My position is clear. His remains, I think, distinctly opaque. It was the Archbishop of Canterbury, Geoffrey Fisher, who said the following, that a nuclear war, thermonuclear war, would only hasten our transition into a more blessed state into which we would bound to eventuate anyway. If I had told you that remark and asked you to guess, you would have said Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said it, or some other fanatical, verminous mullah. No, the Archbishop of Canterbury said it, and why shouldn't he? Because another immoral and sinister thing about religion is that lurking under it at all times, in every one of its versions, is a desire for this life to come to an end, for this poor world to be over. The yearning, the secret death wish that's in all of it, let this be gone, let us move to the next stage, is present at all times, unless it's repudiated, which I invite Dr. McGrath to do. But if he does so, I don't see in what eschatological sense he can claim to remain a Christian. And he can't take it a la carte. If you claim or accept the one version, you have to accept the other. If it's true in general that religion does one thing and some people do good from it, then you have to accept all the wicked acts that are attributable to it as well. And I think you'll find that those don't quite equalize at the margin, depressing though that conclusion would be. I have a challenge, which I have now put in print on the Christianity Today website, in Holy Blossom Synagogue in Toronto the night before last, in many other places, and on the air and on the web, and it's this. if it's to be argued that our morality, our ethics can be derived from the supernatural,